The Chinese government has ordered the permanent closure of European businesses, and the construction of any new retail establishments in Europe is strictly forbidden. All have been instructed to cease their actions. Amid growing trade concerns about electric vehicles, China has ordered its manufacturers to halt their plans to expand in Europe. This action followed a vote by the European Union to impose up to 45% tariffs on electric vehicles manufactured in China. This puts the relationship between the two heavyweights of the economy on the brink of a full-scale trade war. Because of their incredibly low prices, which are the consequence of government subsidies, Chinese electric vehicles are overtaking the European market. The EU is attempting to impose a 48% tariff on these vehicles, arguing that this situation is unjust and unlawful. They believe this will protect Europe's auto industry. Europe is following the United States, which decided to increase tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles to 100%. The EU has officially approved a plan to impose tariffs on electric vehicles imported from China. As of October 2024, when the war started, 8 of the 10 most popular electric vehicle models in Europe are Chinese. This move was seen as a reaction to China's fast-expanding dominance in the EV market. The German car industry, which employs 118,000 people and has 4 major manufacturing factories in the United States, is suffering as a result of the trade war between the United States and China. Both domestic and foreign manufacturers have been hurt by the long-term downturn in the Chinese auto sector. Despite German automakers' demands for tariff-free trade to save jobs in Europe, it was predicted that German car shipments from the US to China would drop by 37% last year. European officials estimate that by 2024, almost 25% of the electric vehicles sold in Europe will have been manufactured in China, up from about 19% in 2023. However, domestic car sales in Europe have been declining yearly, which is a major concern for the long-term sustainability of the continent's automotive industry. In response to this existential dilemma, the EU has decided to take action. In July 2024, an official announcement was made regarding a strategic choice on the anti-subsidy tax on Chinese electric vehicles. The company Baidu imposed a 17% tax rate on auto exports, GL at 18%, and CAIS at 35%. The European Union said that these steps were necessary to protect the domestic auto industry and to slow the rapid rise of Chinese businesses in the market. China, however, saw this action as a clear attempt to stifle competition and shield European automakers from the impending switch to electric vehicles. China vowed to impose its own taxes on European goods unless the EU changed its stance. The level of tension between the two sides rapidly rose. Between July and October 2024, 8 rounds of negotiations were held, but no agreement was ever reached. 10 countries voted in favor of increasing the initial 10% tax to a maximum of 35%, including France, Poland, and Italy. 5 countries, including Germany, opposed the EU's final tariff decision with them in October 2024, and 12 member states did not vote. The chairman of the German Association of the Automotive Industry, VDA, warned that the tariffs raise the likelihood of a long-term trade war and are detrimental to open international trade, prosperity, job preservation, and European expansion. Germany is losing ground. Europe's most significant industry appears to be slowing down, and the continent's largest economy is continuously dropping in global rankings. Chinese electric cars could soon overtake the once respected German automakers, who used to provide more jobs and export revenue than any other industry. Berlin is also a symbol of free markets, according to Germany's economy minister, since they are vital to the nation's internationally integrated economy. However, China responded swiftly and violently, shocking the world by making its producers adhere to agreements. Automakers have been instructed to halt all plans for expansion in Europe and to cease negotiations for new investments or factories. This decision had an immediate and significant impact. Swold Energy Technology, a Chinese battery manufacturer, said that it would stop its European operations on January 31, 2025. Initially, the company had planned to invest 4 billion euros in 2 massive battery production facilities in Germany. German-built cars used to be very popular on domestic and international roads. The automobile industry is Germany's most significant industry and a billion-dollar enterprise, employing nearly 800,000. However, German automakers have been using internal combustion engines for far too long, so their time is running out. When it comes to electric mobility, Germany is lagging behind. German electric vehicles are rarely used in China. In the People's Republic of China, BYD has surpassed Volkswagen to become the market leader. Among the top 10 car brands in China, not a single German manufacturer is present. The initial production, located in Saarland, was anticipated to cost 2 billion euros and have a planned capacity of 24 gigawatts. SVOLT has a second plant in Brandenburg, which is the first factory in the world to manufacture battery cells. It was once anticipated to be completed by the middle of 2024 and have a 16 gigawatt rated capacity. It began operations in November 2020. According to a report from the local media site Katian, which quoted multiple people with knowledge of the situation, SVOLT has put a halt to 2 battery production plant projects, and there are currently no dates for when construction would resume. Building 2 plants in Europe will cost $4 billion, which is too much for a company. Another source claims that company made its decision mostly based on the initial capital investments, and that it should now prioritize fixing its financial issues over technical or regional political factors. Germany's decision to cease construction of its battery factories has significantly impeded its aspirations to dominate the electric vehicle industry. The country has lost $4 billion in direct investments from Europe, and it has also missed the chance to fulfill its own potential in the sector of powerful batteries. This objective is nearly impossible to achieve because German SVOLT production has been halted. Chinese officials were taken aback when the Italian government suddenly decided to raise EU tariffs on Chinese electric cars, as they had insisted on resolving these issues on their own. Talks about establishing a large auto manufacturing facility were underway with Italy. Dongfeng Motor Group, a Chinese corporation, and Italy advanced their discussions. However, Dongfeng abruptly ended all plans to produce cars in Italy. The local Italian car industry, which currently manufactures less than 800,000 automobiles annually, has also been impacted by this decision. The situation deteriorated as Italy's attempts to attract Chinese investments failed following Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's July 2024 visit to China. The European Union's tariffs on Chinese electric cars have sparked a trade war with China. This decision was significantly influenced by Italy's support of the EU's tax hike plans, which China perceived as a betrayal of good faith. The impact on Italy's automobile industry is expected to be substantial, considering that sales of electric vehicles are only expected to make up 4 to 6% of all vehicle sales. In order to break the French company Stellantis' stranglehold on the Italian market and give the country the technological boost it required in the electric car industry, the Italian government sought to attract Chinese investment. As its broader consequences on the global economy become more evident, there are concerns that the trade dispute between China and the EU may obstruct the transition to cleaner, greener transportation. Sales of Chinese electric vehicles in Europe nearly halved from August 2024, hitting an 18-month low. Other Chinese automakers are searching for strategies to mitigate the impact of tariffs, such as establishing domestic operations in Europe or focusing on other areas where the demand for electric vehicles is expanding quickly. The European Union has imposed tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles in an effort to significantly hinder Chinese producers. These taxes might range from 17 to 38%, depending on the manufacturer. Although the effect of these tariffs on Chinese auto sales is still unknown, some Chinese enterprises may still turn a profit even with duties as high as 30%. Beijing's well-considered response to these actions indicated that it intended to strike back by focusing on key sectors of the European economy, particularly luxury goods. This sparked worry at the World Trade Organization and heightened tensions between Beijing and Brussels. China has also launched an investigation into anti-dumping measures related to the export of European alcohol, particularly French cognac, as a direct jab at France. This is directed at one of the leading advocates of higher tariffs on Chinese EVs. As of November 7th, importers will be required to provide Chinese customs with a guarantee deposit when bringing in brandy from the authorized bloc. Imports of brandy from the European Union would be subject to temporary duties ranging from 30% to almost 40%, according to China's Ministry of Commerce. France is expected to bear the biggest losses because French cognac accounts for up to 95% of European exports to China. The second largest market in the EU, China, presents further challenges for the meat, agri-food, and automotive sectors. A 20% tax on European-built large engine cars is being proposed by China, which will significantly impact German automakers like Mercedes and BMW.